Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So here's another deck profile update for you guys today. This time it's on Heroes. So Heroes is in an interesting position because on our most recent ban list, Fusion Destiny went to 2, which is sort of a hit, but at the same time, A Hero Lives also went up to 2. Now keep in mind, I'm actually only playing A Hero Lives to 1 as an instant spoiler, simply because that even though as good a card Hero Lives is, it has lost me games in the past. So that's why I still feel comfortable with it at just 1. And I decided to add in something else to, kind of make up for that blank spot for that third Fusion Destiny. But anyway, figured I'd show you guys what I got this time around. And yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So my deck, as usual, is 40 cards. I actually got my deck in the IP Masquerena sleeves, which I had a double sleeve. So I figured since I had the playmat, might as well just use sleeves that match it too. And I really love this deck. And considering Heroes is one of my strongest decks, I figured, you know what, let's just give it the special treatment for today. But anyway, starting off with 3 copies of Vision Hero Vion. So the reason why you run this at 3 simply is that A, it's your best normal summon anyway. It's a Foolish Burial and it gets you Polymerization. So yeah, Vision Hero Vion is probably one of the most resource efficient cards in the strategy. And again, you don't really need to play Stratos at 3 anymore. However, you still want to run Stratos. It's kind of like a follow-up card, and the fact that it also pops spells and traps. But yeah, Vion definitely your best normal summon. Next, 3 copies of Vision Hero Ferris. Ferris, is just an extender piece. You discard a hero monster to special summon itself. And also, it gives you instant access to Vion in case you didn't open up with it. So it's just basically 6 copies of Vion. And also, one thing I should probably mention, Vion is technically a 1-card Destroy Phoenix and Forces, since Verite Anaconda is surprisingly still legal. I thought it would have gotten banned on the last list, but it managed to survive for one more list. But anyway, moving on, 1 copy of Increase, since you never really want to see this. Yeah, there might be that one occasion where you do open up with it, which can be unfortunate, but you can still make it work. I've done it before, I've been in that position before, and I still managed to close out games. So yeah, 1 increase should be more than enough. All right, moving on. So for our Elemental Hero package, I decided to finally bump this guy back up to 2 copies of Elemental Hero Stratos. So this is the card I was talking about earlier that I decided to kind of fill in the blank for the third Fusion Destiny, since, now that it's at 2. I figured, you know what, go for a second Stratos. It's good for follow-up play. I kind of wanted to play him at 2 on the last list anyway, so yeah, I think 2 Stratos is perfectly fine, and so far after testing it out, it's working really well. Again, you don't really need to run the Hero Lives any more than just 1 copy unless you really want to, but yeah, 2 Stratos should be fine. Next, 2 copies of Shadow Mist. If it's sent to the graveyard, you could add another hero to your hand, and if it's special summon, you can either add a Master Change instead. So pretty neat. Of course, you can only use 1 of her effects per turn and only once that turn. Next, 1 Liquid Soldier, which basically is a Monster Reborn, and also if it's used as fusion material, whether sent to the graveyard or banished, you get to draw 2 cards, but you have to discard 1. But same predicament as Shadow Mist. You can only use 1 of his effects per turn and only once that turn. Next, 1 Honest Neos, which is searchable because pretty much every hero monster in the deck is searchable. For the Destiny Hero package, 2 copies of Malicious and 1 Denier, which basically is your third Malicious. It recycles your first one, and yeah, you could basically abuse Malicious a little bit more with Denier. Of course, you got to run 1 Celestial, because it's another draw 2 card, and 1 Plasma. And just to kind of get them out of the way, 1 copy of Evil Hero Dust to Gold, which, by the way, is not required. But if you do want to run the Evil Hero package, one thing I do like about it is that it's easy to side out. Because for my deck, I like to go blind second to see what my opponent's up to. That way I can formulate my strategy as I go. And that's just usually how I go about it. So, for example, if I lose game 1, and I know I want to go first on the next game, then, I know what to side in and what to side out. So, yeah. All right, so that pretty much does it for the heroes themselves. For hand trips, 2 copies of Ash Blossom and 3 copies of Imperm. Definitely, I feel like these are the best ones. I just like Imperm a little bit more because it's just like a trap card that you can activate from hand. So, yeah, and it's actually the only trap card I'm running in the main deck. So at this point, it's just going to be spells. Starting off with 3 copies of Master Change. This just helps you get into Dark Law or Absolute Zero, but mainly Dark Law, because if you have Dark Law and Destroy Phoenix Enforcer, your opponent cannot Forbidden Droplet to you at all, because you have to be able to send cards to the grave. And since Dark Law is a one-sided Macrocosmo, yeah, it's pretty nasty. 2 copies of Fusion Destiny, which honestly, it doesn't feel much different. Even if this card went to 1, this deck can still play Destroyer, Phoenix, Enforcer, even Ban, believe it or not. I've actually tested out if I didn't have any Fusion Destinies, you could still bring out Destroy, Phoenix, Enforcer very easily just by playing multiple polymerizations instead. So yeah, this deck can still be a formidable force even if this card left the format. But anyway, moving on. 2 copies of Forbidden Droplet. I'm still sticking to 2 simply because I don't really want to discard too many cards. This just to kind of like deal with certain threats that can potentially just like end my turn right away. So that's why I'm just sticking with 2 Droplet. 2 copies of Triple T. I actually just recently got a 3rd copy, but I'm still sticking to 2 because 3 did feel kind of bricky, so I figured 2 is more than enough, plus the 1 Called by the Grave. Yeah, I definitely think this is fine. And for the rest of our 1-0s, you know, 1 Polymerization, 1 Miracle Fusion, 1 Dark Calling, a Hero List, which again, you don't really need to run this at any more than just 1, but if you want to, you could. 1 Rhoda, and 1 Foolish Barrel. I'm not running E-Call simply because, again, Stratos is more of a secondary play. Like, and most of the time I usually do bring out Vion more so than Stratos, so yeah. Stratos is more or less just for follow-up. And plus, the Elemental Hero package itself is pretty condensed, so that's why I figured E-Call just wasn't necessary. Alright, moving on to the extra deck, starting with our 2 Link Monsters. Well, actually not 2 Link Monsters, but 2 copies of Cross Crusader, which basically gets you back one of your Destiny heroes once it's summoned. 1 Wonder Driver, simply because it recycles your fusion spells like Polymerization, and I often do resolve Polymerization twice in a turn thanks to Wonder Driver, so it really comes in clutch. 1 Dread Decimator, which basically makes Dystopia live, which another spoiler. Verite Anaconda, might as well just keep playing it since it's still legal, so yeah. It might actually still be legal up until once we get the new Predaplant support, so we'll just have to wait and see. For fusions, of course, running the big boy himself, Destroy Phoenix Enforcer. I run Dystopia over Danger simply because Dystopia has actually won me a lot of games before. Especially when you burn your opponent for damage, it really can come in clutch just to make it that much easier for you to OTK the opponent. Double Dark Lock is again one-sided Microcosmos. Don't want to pass that up. 1 Acid, which is basically Harpy's Feather Duster on a body. 1 Absolute Zero, which is Raigeki if it leaves the field. Now, of course, keep in mind they did recently change the Master Ruling, so if this card is bounced back to your extra deck, it cannot resolve its effect. So it has to leave from field to the grave in order to resolve it, or from field to the banished pile. So that's the only times that Absolute Zero is going to be able to resolve its effect now. So yeah. Anyway, moving on. 1 Elemental Hero Sunrise, which gives you Miracle Fusion, and it's a pretty good power boost for every different attribute you control. 1 Escorido is just another dark target for like Miracle Fusion, since I am mostly running dark monsters. 1 Trinity. And of course, 1 copy of Malicious Bane, which, you know, they definitely help with the OTK strategy too. Alright, that pretty much rounds up our extra deck. Now for the side deck, because I had to make some changes, I decided to cut the entirety of the, well, almost the entirety of the Artifact engine. But we're starting off with this first 3 copies of Token Collector. This is primarily for any Sword Soul matchup or any heroic token players, like mainly the Phantom Knights that run this. I just don't want them to generate tokens and just gain more advantage, you know? And oddly enough, Scapegoat, if I'm not mistaken, went back up to 2. I don't know if that's going to be a threat or not. It might not be, considering that it does lock you out of your normal summon. But we'll just have to wait and see where that goes. So it's just good as a precaution, you know? Still playing 2 copies of Lancia. I decided to cut Scythe and Artifact Sanctum simply because I just never saw them enough. And since I'm not running Dagda, that's the only reason why I decided to cut it. Still running 1 Nibiru though, and the 2 Crossout Designators, because if I know my opponent's going to side in Nibirus, at least I have a backup plan. Since IO is completely off the format, thank God, running Twin Twisters over Cosmic Cyclone this time, and of course 1 Harpy's Feather Duster. So Harpy's Feather Duster is still a really great card. And I mentioned this in the last video that heroes don't have an inherent way of actually protecting themselves other than like Malicious Bane being unable to be destroyed by battle or card effects. I decided to run 3 copies of Solemn Judgment still, simply because, you know, it's good protection, especially if I'm going first. And when I go first, I tend to go with, like, the more safe route, so it's easy for me to still, you know, set up a formidable board, but also have additional disruptions, you know? or just ways to protect myself. So yeah, Solemn Judgment is definitely one of those cards that can do that. And of course, one Red Reboot for any back row heavy strategy too. So yeah, Red Reboot and Solemn Judgment, not too bad. Well, that's all I got for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will catch you guys again next time.